Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to do this simple piece of art that's kind of like semi-abstract. This was done very much as a kind of play exercise really for me. I was just messing about with neutral tint and various other things. So one of the first things I did here was I created a horizon line about, a third of the way up, something like that. And then I added in some small boats at the back left here. As you can see, they're closer to the horizon. And as the boats get bigger, they're going to come away from the horizon, they're going to drop down, and they're also going to grow in size. Now, in terms of, really how you sketch these boats is completely up to you. I've chosen to draw some sort of traditional gaff rig things here, but you could just draw simple triangles. You could draw a sort of more triangle at the bottom and a triangle at the top. There's loads of videos on my channel about how to draw boats, so maybe check those out. But one of the things I would say is as far as advice goes, is like any subject, find a photo of a boat, leaning over with a little bit of breeze on it. Look at the outside silhouette, look at the outside shape of the boat, and look at the primary details inside those areas. And that will help you, construct that shape. Construct the boat from the outer shape. Now, one of the things I was trying to avoid here really was having like ducks on a wall, one in one position, one in another position, and then them equally spaced basically. So what I've done is I've moved that front one a little bit closer to the camera, as it were, just to sort of break up that pattern. Now, I don't think these are my finest drawings when it comes to boats, particularly old boats, but I don't think that really takes anything away from the sort of technique in this demonstration. So the next part of this is just using some masking fluid. Now, I'm obviously going to use a smallish brush for the small boats that are at the back. And it's really just a case of blocking out the sail and the hull. You're not going to block out a mast or anything like that. So you just want to block out those main shapes so that when you put a wash over the top, those areas stay white. And then it's just a case of doing the larger ones as well, filling in those sails so that they don't get any paint on them. So for the next stage here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a layer of water all the way over the top of this. So I'm using a mop brush here, and I'm just going to put a single layer of water right over the top of all that, and then I'm going to let it just sit. Now, normally if I'm doing a sky, I'm going to be stopping at the horizon, but because this is the whole thing I'm painting here, it's going to go down to all the way down to the bottom of the page. So for this, I've mixed up some neutral tint, which is paint without sort of colour pigment. Technically, it's supposed to be just a very neutral grey. You can use it to lower, darken whatever paint you put to it. This was an experiment, really. I've never really used neutral tint like this, so I thought I'd just try it and see how warm or cool it ended up looking. And as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm starting at the bottom left on the horizon line, and I'm bringing the clouds as I'm adding them in, or the dark spaces between the clouds, up from the diagonally up to that top right corner. And then I'm going to be copying that so that there's a sort of reflection on the sea as well. So all those dark areas are heading down towards that same point on the bottom left of the horizon. Now I'm just embellishing some of those dark areas here. Now I think at this point, when I was originally doing this, I wasn't sure what I was going to do for the sea, but I decided to go ahead and put that reflection straight in. So again, I'm trying to mimic those dark spaces that I've done there, but I am aware that in the foreground, you are going to have maybe a few gentle waves. So I want you to put in just a couple of horizontal elements, just to try and sort of suggest a wave that you wouldn't see in the sky. And I think that helps to slightly differentiate between sky and land, if you know what I mean. So the next stage that I've done here, and I don't think it's necessarily necessary to do this in a way, is I wanted to break up some of the biggest shapes in the clouds at the top. So what I'm doing is I'm adding in some areas of clean water with the mop brush, and what that's going to do is that's going to float the pigment back up off the surface. So that really means that the pigment is wandering around again, and you can reapply it and move it about. So what I'm doing here is I'm playing just to see how the paint moves, to see what happens if I push it here and there. This is pretty, this isn't very controlled painting. You know, this is just seeing what happens if I do this, seeing what happens if I'm doing that. And so I've created something in that sky. It's maybe a bit blobby, but I want to see if I can create a sense of that in the foreground as well as a sort of reflection. So I'm adding in a little bit of water into the foreground there. This is not an exact science by any means. So although I find that, you know, I think that is an interesting composition, there is more body to it. What I'm actually doing here is I'm actually pulling up some of those clouds that I created a bit further down back up into that area, because I feel that they lost a little bit of something when I sort of wetted them out too much. So what I'm trying to do now is create some softer sort of cumulonimbus type clouds. I'm using clean water, and then I'm putting the brush onto the tissue there, and then I'm sucking off that paint that's been reactivated. So for the next stage, after that's been thoroughly dried, or it's been hair dried or left to dry, I'm going to use some tissue and I'm just going to rub off that masking fluid. Now I'm going to use some grey fine liners here, because I think black would have been a little bit too contrasty. So, because that's quite a subtle scene, particularly when you see it full A4. Now I almost think you could leave that there. I quite like that it's certainly quite a nice abstract scene. But of course I don't. I'm going to start painting in some of these little boats now, adding in a little gentle outline, and then just picking out some of the more vertical features, sort of the masts and maybe some of the rigging. As you can see, I have some Lego on the page there. Now that is a very sophisticated camera stand that I occasionally use for doing detailed close-ups when I'm filming with my phone. I don't use it anymore. I've got some other equipment that has superseded the Lego, but it was a useful experiment. Lego is a really wonderful prototyping material. And then I'm adding in a tiny bit of colour just on the hulls of the boats. A few final touches with the white gel pen there, just to create some sense of sort of little twinkles on the water, and just a few light little highlights. And there we have the final version. As I said, this is just a short video. I'm not 100% sure that this was a successful art play, and I certainly enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to put it on my wall, but I learned a lot from it, and yeah, and you get to see whether you like it or not. So have a go at something like that. It's a lot of fun. Cheers, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.